Gabriel slammed the car door like a punchline. "Let's see how she gets back," he laughed, his voice slicing through the humid Italian air. I stood frozen on the cobblestone street, my words caught mid-sentence, swallowed by the sound of tires screeching away. The taillights curved around the corner, disappearing into the night. His friends laughed, loud, drunk, distant now. Just dust. Silence. "He's coming back," I told myself. "He has to. This is just one of his twisted jokes." The locals at sidewalk cafes glanced over, half interested, half concerned. I tried to look casual, normal, but my hands were shaking. The knot in my stomach grew tighter with each passing minute. Then an hour. Then nightfall. I didn't even know the name of the town. Earlier that day, I'd begged Gabriel to slow down on the wine at lunch. But he was already 3 drinks in, surrounded by his old college buddies, reliving their glory days like they still meant something. "She's always controlling you, man," Pete smirked, ordering another round. I'd suggested we head back to the hotel. That's when Gabriel followed me outside, stumbling, slurring, but his anger was clear. "Crystal." We didn't argue. We exploded. "Your purse has your passport, right?" he sneered. "Then you'll figure it out. You're so smart, always telling me what to do." Then he left. Just like that. By the time the sun vanished, the charming postcard of a town had turned foreign and sharp-edged. I counted my cash.
80 euros.
37 American dollars. No cards. Gabriel had offered to hold them earlier because my purse was too full.
Kind, right?
I wandered until I found a tiny pensione above a bakery. A woman with kind eyes and flour on her apron showed me to a room with a narrow bed and a cracked sink. She didn't speak English, but she saw me. She understood something had gone wrong. 27 calls, all to Gabriel, straight to voicemail. I texted, nothing. I tried Pete.
Marco.
Every one of those men in that car.
Blocked.
Not a drunken impulse. A plan. Sleep was a broken thing that night. Hope kept waking me up. Panic kept me from going back under. By morning, I convinced myself he'd return, with a smirk and a cruel excuse. It was just a joke, he'd say. You're overreacting. We'd go home. Pretend this was just a bump in our glossy Boston life. Him, the architect with charm and status. Me, the wife who quit her design career to schedule dinners and decorate our perfect world. But he didn't come back. The next day, I ate a single panini, walked the town's edge, peered into hotels, cafes, searching for the tour group. They were gone. Florence, probably. I was a deleted detail. On the third day, a cafe owner noticed me lingering. He gave me free espresso. Then directions to the police. The officer was sympathetic, but unmoved. Like this wasn't new. He filed a report. That was all. That afternoon, I walked to a pawn shop, pressed my wedding ring against the glass. 2 carats. Upgraded for our 5th anniversary. Gabriel's idea of a gesture. The shopkeeper barely looked at it before sliding a few bills across the counter. It was enough. America, he said, pointing. Call family. I nodded.
But no.
Family meant shame. My mother's I told you so. Friends meant pity. I didn't want pity. I wanted air. I wanted out. The bus station was dim and still. The departure board blinked with cities I'd only read about.
Rome. Bari. Brindisi.
I traced connections in my mind. Buses to ferries. Ferries to elsewhere. I hovered over my father's name in my phone. 1 tap and I could go home. Back to that life. The quiet, careful shrinking of myself to fit his world. I remembered Gabriel laughing, hiding my design portfolios like a joke. Why complicate things, he'd said. We don't need the money. I need you here. At the time, I laughed too.
Now?
I saw it for what it was. A cage. Where you go? The ticket woman asked, her eyes soft. Greece, I said, surprising myself. The furthest coastal village you can get me to. 14 hours later, I stepped off the last bus. My legs ached. My phone was dead. My stomach hollow. The scent of salt and olive trees filled the air. No map. No plan. No language. Just hunger. Exhaustion. But also something else. Something fragile and new. Freedom. I kept walking. Blisters stung my feet. Sandals meant for cute cafes, not dirt paths. My water bottle had long since run dry. The sun burned. Trees shimmered like coins. I remember thinking, olive groves, and then nothing. My knees gave out. I hit the ground. A voice reached through the darkness. Fias meo. Kyria. Then hands. Wrinkled. Strong. A woman's face appeared. Lined. Kind. Full of worry. She offered water. I drank. Enough to sit up. Elena, she said, pointing to herself. Alexis, I whispered, echoing her gesture. She helped me to my feet and led me toward a farmhouse tucked into the olive trees. Inside, herbs hung from the ceiling. Something simmered on the stove. A man appeared, sun-darkened skin, silver mustache. Nikos, she said. He nodded at me, guarded but not cold. They fed me soup.
Bread.
Water. I cried, trying to explain. They didn't understand, but they didn't need to. They saw me. That night, they gave me a small room. White walls. A single bed. A handmade quilt. I slept. In the morning, there were clean clothes folded neatly on the bed. A cotton dress. A cardigan. I dressed. Entered the kitchen. Elena smiled and handed me coffee, bread, honey. For the first time in days, I was warm. Federal scene. And then guilt crept in. I was a stranger. A burden. I had to explain. I had to move on. With a translation app and shaky words, I tried. But when I told her I needed to return to the village, Elena's face fell. Elena shook her head, firm but kind, pointing to the rain tapping at the windows. Then to my swollen, blistered feet. Stay, she said. Rest. It was one of the few English words she knew, but it carried the full weight of a mother's command. I tried to leave more than once. Purse in hand, shoes laced. But each time, she met me at the door, her eyes quietly pleading. Guilt pinned me in place. On the third day, she took my hand and led me to the mantel. Opened a small wooden box. Inside, photos, edges worn soft with time. Her finger trembled as she pointed to a young woman. Elena's eyes. Nikos's smile. Sophia, she whispered. Then she pointed far away. Australia. Her eyes filled with tears. She made a cradling motion, then held her hand at waist height. A child. Grandbaby, she said, showing me another photo, tiny fingers wrapped around someone else's thumb.
No, see.
It hit me, quiet and deep. Elena had lost her daughter to distance. Maybe more. And now, I was the space filler. The surrogate. But instead of feeling used, I felt her ache in my bones. I nodded. Quietly hung my purse back on the wall. And stayed. Life on the farm unfolded in slow, earthy rhythms. Elena showed me how to gather eggs without startling the chickens. How to hang laundry so the wind kissed it dry.
Nikos taught me to weed the garden.
I pulled an herb by mistake. He only chuckled. My body, once sculpted in gyms and stretched on yoga mats, screamed at the new labor. But with every ache, I felt something returning. Something real. In Boston, I'd mastered controlled living, balanced schedules, edited emotions, clean kitchens. Here, I dirted my hands, formed new calluses.
Slept like the dead.
The endless loop of Gabriel's betrayal slowly dulled. My mind no longer circled his name like a drain. Out here, there were tomatoes to pick, phrases to learn, a kitchen to sweep. And at night, on the porch, as Nikos smoked and Elena knitted, peace would creep in, soft, uninvited, steady. 2 weeks in, Elena sat beside me as we shelled peas, her eyes searching mine. Home, she asked, her voice cautious. You want go home? She motioned. America, the place I'd fled. The word knocked the wind for me. Home meant Gabriel. Our brownstone. Marble countertops. Control disguised as care. My voice, my space, my dreams. erased slowly enough that I didn't even notice. The tears came fast. I tried to explain, words crashing over one another. She couldn't understand most of them, but pain speaks louder than language. When I finished, Elena placed her hand over mine, then touched her heart, gestured to the land around us, then to me. Her meaning was clear. I was wanted, not needed, not tolerated. Wanted. Work, I whispered, mimicking Nikos pruning the trees. I stay. I work. Elena's face bloomed. She squeezed my hand gently, like we'd just agreed on breakfast, not the direction of my life. The next morning, before the sky even thought about light, she woke me with a tap on the door. Held out old work clothes. Sophia's. The boots were too big. The shirt hung off my shoulders, but it felt like armor. We walked into the grove. Stars still blinking above. The trees stood ancient and silent, waiting. Elise, Elena said, pointing to the branches heavy with fruit. She showed me how to rake the olives into nets. My first try sent down more twigs than fruit. Nikos smiled, corrected me without a word. By mid-morning, my arms burned. My hands stung. But something deep inside, something buried, glowed. At lunch, Elena examined my red palms and laughed. Boston lady hands, she teased, disappearing into the house. She returned with a salve that smelled like beeswax and herbs. Rubbed it in gently. Tomorrow better, she promised. She was right. Each day, I grew stronger. My technique improved. My pride deepened. Eventually, I could work beside them for hours. No complaints. Just sweat, sun, and quiet satisfaction. Harvesting was only the beginning. Sorting was brutal in its precision. Under the pergola's shade, we separated perfect olives for oil, blemished for second press, bruised for soap. Elena hovered at first, correcting me, then less, then not at all. You learn fast, Nikos said one night, his English improving, like my Greek. I beamed at the words more than I ever had at Gabriel's compliments, because this one was earned. In the kitchen, I became Elena's shadow. Boston had made me a recipe follower. Here I had to feel my way through. No measurements. No timers. Just instinct and touch. My first loaves were disasters, burnt, undercooked, ugly. But Elena tore them open anyway. Smiled. All learning is waste, she said. I think she meant. There are no wasted mistakes. Her acceptance shocked me. In my old life, errors were sins. Here, they were steps. I started noticing everything. The eggs still warm from the hens, vegetables sun-kissed, herbs picked moments before dinner. My body responded. The pounds Gabriel had obsessed over melted off. But I wasn't shrinking. I was strengthening. My reflection in the mirror startled me. Brown skin, bright eyes, softer edges in some places, sharper ones in others. I looked more like someone real, someone alive. Evenings became sacred. Elena showed me photo albums, black and white memories of a life I hadn't lived, but somehow connected with. She'd once been a teacher. That surprised me. You? She asked, mimicking typing. I showed her my designs. My old work. Projects I'd shelved under Gabriel's disapproval. Elena studied them. Pointed. Smiled. Beautiful thinking, she said, tapping her temple. It wrecked me because it mattered. She saw me. One rainy day, she taught me to knit. My scarf came out crooked and thick, a mess of missed stitches. But it was mine. Handmade. Honest. I made more. A mug with Nikos at the wheel. A basket taught by a neighbor. They weren't perfect, but they were real.
And real was enough.
After 3 months of room, board, and no money, Elena and Nikos took me to a small building near the grove. Bottles of oil lined the shelves. Our harvest. Market day, Elena said, pointing at the calendar. You come. The village square buzzed with life. Color. Music.
Dust.
Farmers, artisans, locals, tourists. We set up a simple table, oil, soap, jars of olives. And then they surprised me. put me front and center. I spoke in broken Greek, they translated in broken English. We laughed. People bought. And as the sun dipped behind the roofs, Elena pressed an envelope into my hand. Your part, she said. I opened it. A handful of euros. Nothing extravagant. But it was mine. Earned. For the first time in years, money with no strings.
No manipulation. No guilt.
That night, I tucked the envelope under my pillow. My fingers kept reaching for it. In 10 years of marriage, Gabriel had made sure I never had financial autonomy. To keep it simple, he'd said. A system that kept me small. Now, this envelope felt like a key. And as I drifted into sleep, I realized I hadn't thought about Gabriel once all day. His shadow was shrinking. And in its place, me. The invitation came casually, but I felt it in my bones. Dinner at the village taverna. My first since arriving. Elena handed me a blouse from her closet. Soft, floral, borrowed from another time. I smoothed it over my hips, nervous and unsure, but ready. The place was alive with sound. Cutlery clinking, bursts of laughter, a warm buzz of voices bouncing off the stone walls. Stavros, the owner, greeted Elena and Nikos with a joy that only comes from decades of shared history. Then he turned to me. Our American, Elena said proudly in Greek. Stavros smiled and led us to a worn wooden table tucked into the corner. Their regular spot, it seemed. Over grilled fish and sweet village wine, Nikos cleared his throat. His voice, when it came, was careful. Alexis, we won't talk business. I froze. Had I done something wrong? Was it time for me to leave? Elena reached for my hand, steady and warm. We old now, she said with a small smile. 68, 70. No children here. Sophia not come back. Nikos nodded, his eyes focused and kind. We think, retire soon. 2, 3 years. But olive trees. He motioned toward the air like he was blessing it. 200 years old. Need young hands. The truth unraveled slowly, word by word. You learn fast, Elena said, her eyes crinkling at the corners. We teach you everything. Then she opened her hands. A silent offering. The business yours. I forgot how to breathe. They were offering me not just work, but legacy. A life. I was a stranger. A foreigner who collapsed in their field. I don't know enough, I whispered. The soil, the oil, the numbers, you learn, Nico said. We teach.
No rush.
And just like that, something inside me shifted. The apprenticeship began. Each day, Nikos took me deeper into the groves, explaining the way soil changed taste, how the trees whispered when they were thirsty, what disease looked like before it struck. He moved through the land like someone who spoke its language. Elena trained me in the business. Ledgers written by hand, a dusty laptop her grandson had set up years ago. Her tracking system was basic, but functional. That was where I could give back. At night, I rebuilt their records. Created formulas, filters, summaries. One evening, I showed Elena how to track which oil blends sold best at which markets. She stared at the screen, amazed. Boston lady brain, she said with a grin. Good for business. With their blessing, I added flavor notes to the bottles. Updated the tags. Wrote brochures about their old world process. Our stall became a small destination. And the village began to open. The pharmacist lingered longer at the market. The baker's wife invited me for coffee. Stavros placed our oil on every table in the taverna, proudly pointing out our label. Good for you, good for me, he said with a wink. Word spread. 2 restaurants in nearby towns reached out. A small ripple but growing. 6 months in, I stood at the back of the village church, watching the baptism of the butcher's granddaughter. The priest, in his tattered robes, greeted me afterward with a warm smile. You bring new life to Old Grove, he said in halting English. Village needs new blood. That was the final gate. After that, the invitations flowed. Name days, beach dinners, a festival committee meeting. And then there was Yana, the weaver whose market stall stood beside ours. She was sharp, steady, widowed young. Something about her reminded me of my college roommate. The one Gabriel said was too opinionated. We spoke in a mix of languages. Gossip, business, life. One afternoon, as we packed up our things, she asked, "You never speak of America. Family? Friends?" The question slipped under my skin. "My parents are gone," I said. "A few friends, but—" I drifted. Gabriel didn't like them. Yana tilted her head. "The husband who left you in Italy?" I nodded. "His name is Gabriel. And he never looked for you?" I shrugged. "I don't know. I haven't checked." She raised her eyebrows. "Maybe it's time. Not for him, for you. To close the door." Her words clung to me. That night after dinner, I went to my room, turned on my old phone. It still worked, barely. I connected to the farmhouse's Wi-Fi and opened my email. Hundreds of unread messages. Old friends. Casual hellos that turned into worried questions. Shame bloomed. I'd vanished. One subject line caught my eye: job opportunity from my former mentor. A remote consulting role. Sustainable building materials. She'd kept the door open. But then another name stopped me cold. Gabriel Davis subject. "I know where you are." My heart thudded. I opened it. "Alexis, it's taken months and a private investigator, but I've finally tracked you to that backwater in Greece. This has gone on long enough. I'm coming to bring you home and end this ridiculous tantrum. My flight lands in Athens on Thursday. Be ready."
G.
3 days. I stumbled downstairs. The phone still clutched in my hand. Elena looked up from the ledger. "Bad news from America?" she asked gently. "Gabriel," I said. "He's coming. Thursday." Her eyes narrowed. She reached beneath the ledger and pulled out an envelope. "Good timing," she said. Was waiting for right moment. Inside, a legal document. My name. Hers. Nikos's. English and Greek. Partnership agreement. 1/3 of the business. Mine. Not someday.
Now.
I stared at the paper. Tears blurred my vision. Not a favor. Not charity. A stake. A future. "You choose what happens Thursday," Elena said. "You have home here. Business here. Friends here." She pointed at the phone. "That man? He no longer decides." For the first time since Italy, I felt anchored. The next 3 days, I prepared. Not to leave. To stand firm. I visited the village lawyer, drafted divorce papers in both languages. I emailed my mentor. Said yes. I reached out to old friends. Short, honest notes.
No επαλεγείς.
Just the truth. Thursday arrived like any other Greek summer day. Blue, bright, cloudless. I was in the shed with Nikos, testing oil samples, when I heard the sound of a car. Elena appeared at the door. Her face was calm. "He is here." I wiped my hands on my apron. Stepped outside.
Gabriel stod besida en tall sedan.
Silver. Immaculate. Sunglasses perched on his head, a button-down shirt pressed like armor. He was scanning the farmhouse like it offended him. He didn't see me at first. But I saw him. And for the first time, he looked small. Out of place. The man who once consumed my life now seemed less. "Gabriel," I called, voice steady. He turned. His eyes widened. He scanned me head to toe. The boots. The tanned arms. The kerchief over my hair. "My God, Alexis. What happened to you?" The old tone was there, disapproval, confusion, entitlement. Once, it would have knocked the wind out of me.
Now?
It bounced off. "Life happened," I said, walking toward him. "What are you doing here, Gabriel?" He took off his sunglasses, sliding into that familiar, polished charm. Arms open, voice casual. "I've come to take you home, of course. This has gone on long enough, don't you think? Whatever point you were trying to make, this isn't about making a point," I said, cutting him off. I stayed well outside his reach. "This is about making a life." His smile faltered. Behind me, I heard the soft creak of the farmhouse door. Elena and Nico stepped out, saying nothing, just standing there. Quiet witnesses. A wall I didn't know I'd needed until I saw them. Gabriel noticed them, his gaze sharpening. These the people you've been staying with, he asked. Are they holding you here? Because if they are, they're not holding me, I said, voice firm. They've been teaching me about olive farming, about generosity, about a kind of love that doesn't ask for anything in return. I motioned toward the groves behind us. I'm part owner now. We run a business. He blinked, trying to process. Then that familiar condescension flickered back into his expression. A business? He gave a short laugh. Alexis, be serious. You're a designer, not a farmer. What is this? Some eat, pray, love phase after our fight. He took a step forward, lowering his voice. I admit it. I shouldn't have left you in Italy. It was stupid. Drunken.
Eve apologized.
You've apologized? I repeated.
When?
In what world does tracking me down and demanding I come home count as an apology? His jaw tensed. The mask cracked.
Fine, he snapped.
I'm sorry I left you in Italy. It was immature. It was wrong.
Satisfied.
Why now, Gabriel? I asked. It's been months. Why come looking now? He shifted, casting a glance at Elena and Nikos. Can we talk privately? In the car, maybe. They don't speak English. And I have nothing to hide. Why now? He exhaled, the first sign of something close to vulnerability. Your parents' old friends started calling. People from the club. Clients showing up at the house. Asking questions. It's starting to look bad for your image, I finished. He looked stung. Our image. Our life. The one we built over 10 years of marriage. No, I said. The life you built. I was just there. An accessory. Did you even notice how miserable I was before Italy? Did you care? His face darkened. We had a good life, Alexis. A beautiful home. Financial stability. Status. What else could you possibly want? Purpose. Connection. Ownership over my own choices. I turned, motioning to the small farmhouse, the grove beyond. I found all that here. In a place you'd call primitive. In a life you'd mock. This isn't you, he said quickly, a note of panic in his voice. The Alexis I know would trade comfort and position for manual labor and poverty. I smiled. For once, he was absolutely right. The Alexis you knew wouldn't have. But that woman died in Italy. The day her husband drove off laughing. The woman standing here today made different choices. At that moment, Elena walked over. She pressed a folded paper into my hand. Our partnership agreement. Even without understanding the words, she knew what was happening. I opened the document and held it out to Gabriel. I have legal ties here. Ownership. Responsibility. I'm not playing house in the countryside. I'm building something real. And I'm valued. For who I am. Not what I make you look like. His face flushed. Anger rising. This is ridiculous, he hissed. Whatever game you think you're playing, it's not a game, I said. I reached into my pocket, pulled out an envelope. These are divorce papers. Already filed. The terms are fair. Division of assets. You won't be cheated. He stared at the envelope like it was poison. You can't be serious. I'm not throwing anything away, I said calmly. I'm choosing better. For me. I took a step forward, slipped the envelope into his frozen hand. You left me, Gabriel. You laughed. You walked away like I was a joke. You just never thought I'd get up and walk on without you. He looked down at the papers, then back at me, shocked. Angry. Wounded. You'll regret this, he said, but his voice was hollow. When the romance wears off and you're still hauling olives at 60, you'll remember what you gave up. Maybe, I replied. But I'd rather live with the risk of my own decisions than the certainty of yours. Nikos stepped forward then. He placed a weathered hand on my shoulder, his presence grounding. He looked at Gabriel and said something in Greek. Come. Final. What did he say? Gabriel asked, his voice quieter now. He said the road back to Athens is dangerous after dark, I replied. You should leave now to make it before nightfall. Gabriel stood there, still trying to rewrite the ending in his head. But there was no rescue.
No reconciliation.
No return.
This was goodbye.
Without another word, he turned, walked to the car, and drove off, divorce papers still in hand. I didn't watch the car disappear. I felt Elena's fingers slip into mine. Together, the three of us turned back toward the house. My house now, too. Inside, dinner waited. Oil samples needed cataloging. Market prep still to do. The work was real. The life was mine. He left me in a foreign country thinking I'd crumble, that I'd come crawling back. Instead, I found roots. And in trying to break me, Gabriel had accidentally set me free. I came home for Thanksgiving, arms full, heart full, ready for family. But the house was silent. No smell of turkey. No sounds of laughter or football. Just the slow creak of a rocking chair, and Victor. He didn't say much, just looked at me with those piercing blue eyes and asked, "Shall we begin?" I didn't know what he meant. Not yet. There was a note on the counter. Brady's handwriting. I unfolded it with a strange sense of dread already forming in my chest. Gone on a Caribbean cruise with Hannah. Mom needed a break too, so she came. You'll stay and take care of Victor.
He needs you.
Back Monday. Brady. My hands shook. The room went cold. I read it again. Again.
Gone.
He left me. Without a word. On Thanksgiving. A voice rasped behind me. He's not coming back until Monday, is he? Victor stood in the doorway, leaning on his cane. Too steady. Too sharp. Not at all like the frail old man Brady always described.
No, iwis para.
They've all gone. He nodded.
Calm.
Like he expected this. Left you with the dirty work, didn't they? Classic Brady. I sat down, stunned. My phone rang, voicemail. Again. My hands moved without thought, checking Instagram. There it was. A picture that hit like a fist. Brady. On a cruise ship. His arm around Hannah, his so-called colleague. Champagne flutes in hand.
Smiling.
Hashtag new beginnings. His mother Elaine was there too. Laughing. Cocktail in hand. Needing a break, apparently. It had all been planned. Long before today. Victor watched me quietly. Hannah's been calling the house for months. Pretty voice. Terrible laugh. I stared at him. You knew. I know more than they think. They treat me like I'm half dead. But this. He tapped his temple. Still works just fine. Something in me shifted. Snapped. I opened our banking app.
Gone.
$5,200, our savings. Every cent we'd scraped together for a house Brady promised we'd start searching for after the holidays. He took it all, I murmured. Victor didn't flinch. They've been stealing from me too. My meds. My heat. My money. For years. I felt sick. This wasn't just betrayal. It was abandonment.
Calculated. Cold.
My phone rang, Leah. I let it ring. Victor offered leftover soup. Not much of a Thanksgiving, he said. But I was already grabbing my purse. No, I told him. We deserve better. The grocery store was a blur. I moved through it on instinct, picking up a small turkey breast, potatoes, a few vegetables. I barely noticed the other shoppers. Back home, Victor had cleaned the counter. He sat at the table with a stack of papers. What's all this? I asked. Evidence, he said. I've been documenting everything. Medical neglect. Financial theft. Months of it. I sat, speechless, flipping through the papers. Bank statements. Medical reports. Canceled appointments. Ignored recommendations. His life laid bare. Why are you showing me this? Because you've been wrong too, Jade. And because I'm dying. He showed me the report. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. 3 months, maybe less. I stared at him. I'm sorry. Don't be. Be smart. His voice was steady now, sharp with something that felt like resolve. They think they left you with a burden. But they handed us an opportunity. For what? His smile wasn't kind. It was knowing. For justice. He slid an envelope across the table. his real will. The one Brady and Elaine didn't know existed. If you help me finish this, document the truth, carry out my final wishes, I'll make sure you're taken care of. A part of me hesitated, but another part, a deeper, angrier part, said yes before I could stop it. Yes, I said. Let's begin. Victor leaned back, his energy fading again. You should rest, I told him. I'll finish dinner. But he shook his head. There's something you need to see first. He led me to a back room.
Small.
Converted. Not a guest bedroom, an afterthought. A hospital bed sat untouched. He slept in a narrow twin against the far wall. Can't stand that thing, he muttered, motioning to the hospital bed. Makes me feel like I've already given up. He unlocked a drawer, handed me a thick folder, labeled medical. Pancreatic cancer, he said. Stage 4. Diagnosed 3 months ago. I've got 2 left. Maybe less. The reports confirmed everything. Notes from oncologists. Declining scans.
Pain meds.
Enzymes. Comfort care. And they knew.
I asked.
Oh, they knew, he said. Elaine was at the appointment. 2 days later, she said she needed a break. I clenched my jaw. Victor gestured toward the bathroom. Check the meds. Then look at the records. Tell me what's missing. I did. It didn't take long. Pain meds, refilled but barely touched. Enzymes, short. Care, cut. Diluted, Victor said. Half doses. Cancelled appointments. Too expensive, they said. I held the evidence in my hands. My fingers trembled. This wasn't just negligence.
It was cruelty.
That's not just neglect, I said softly, holding Victor's gaze. That's abuse. It's what happens when people stop seeing you as human and start seeing you as an inconvenience. Victor didn't argue, just reached beneath his pillow and pulled out a small notebook. He handed it to me. Been keeping track, he said. Inside, page after page. Missed medications. Cancelled appointments. Withdrawals for supplies that never arrived. The handwriting was steady.
Precise.
Despite everything, Victor's mind was a steel trap. I closed the notebook, my chest tight. Let me fix you something to eat, I said. I needed space. Time to process. The kitchen was bleak. A few cans, expired milk, old bread. From what I'd brought earlier, I managed to scrape together roasted turkey breast, mashed potatoes, green beans. It wasn't what I'd planned, but it was real food.
Warm.
Made with care. At the table, Victor watched me. Tell me about your marriage, he said, breaking the silence. When did you first notice Brady wasn't who you thought he was? I hesitated, poking at the food. It was gradual, I admitted. At first, he was sweet, supportive of my design work. I had my own studio, my own space, friends, a life. I paused, realizing how far away that life now felt. After we married, he suggested I work from home. Save on rent, he said. It made sense.
Until my software started failing.
My laptop crashed constantly. Then he didn't like certain clients. Thought I should spend less time with friends. He'd check my phone just for a number, he claimed. Victor nodded. Isolation. Classic. My father passed last year. Left me $30,000. Brady said we should put it in our joint account. For our future. For the house we'd start looking for after the holidays. I glanced down at my plate. That's the money he spent on his cruise, Victor said quietly. I set my fork down. Appetite gone. 6 years, I whispered. And he just replaced me. Victor leaned back, his eyes distant. People like Brady and Elaine, they don't love. They invest. And when the return doesn't suit them, they cut their losses. He told me about meeting Elaine, how she'd charmed him, how Brady had seemed like a boy looking for a father. After we married, the expenses started. Designer clothes. Fancy dinners. I tried setting limits, but then I was the bad guy.
Cheap.
Controlling. That sounds familiar, I murmured. After dinner, he led me into what used to be his study. Elaine had turned it into some kind of meditation space, but his desk was still there, buried under scented candles and yoga mats. Help me with the painting, he said, pointing at a bland landscape on the wall. Behind it wasn't a safe, just a loose panel. Victor removed it and pulled out a sealed case. My real assets, he said, laying documents across the desk. Accounts,
Deeds.
investment records, properties in Vermont, offshore holdings in the Caymans. The numbers made my head spin. More than $3 million in untouchable wealth. They've been draining what they can access, he said. But this? They don't even know it exists. He tapped a deed. This house? It's not in my name. Not Elaine's either. They think they're inheriting it. They're not. I swallowed hard. Brady doesn't know any of this? Victor smiled. Not a clue. Even my attorney only knows part of it. Just one financial advisor in Boston. Sworn to silence. His voice darkened. I always knew who Brady really was. Just like his mother, smiling while they rob you blind. I just never imagined he'd do it to you too. The next morning, Victor's attorney arrived. Patricia Winters, 60s. Silver hair sharp as her stare. A woman who'd walked through more battles than she'd lost. So, she said, eyeing me, you're the abandoned daughter-in-law. She sat with us over coffee, laying out what Victor had already been working on, will amendments, documentation of neglect, legal shields no one could break. We've got to finalize a few things, she said. Witness signatures, transfers, powers of attorney. I offered to organize Victor's records, digital backups, clean categorization. My design skills, finally useful again. Perfect, Patricia said. They'll challenge everything. We need this airtight. Later, after Patricia left with the signed files, Victor pulled out a photo album. Look, he said, pointing to a photo of Brady as a teenager. See Elaine behind him? Always whispering in his ear. Next page. Brady's father, grim, drained. She did to him what Brady's doing to you. Each photo was a mirror. Manipulation.
Control.
Smile for the camera. Then take what you want behind the scenes. It's like seeing my life from the outside, I whispered. Victor nodded slowly. That's why we stopped them. So they don't do it again. In that moment, something shifted. We weren't just plotting justice. We were healing. Together. We're not just getting revenge, Victor said, closing the album gently. We're making things right. I reached across the couch, took his hand. Yes, I said. For both of us. The next day, I woke with purpose. Victor was having a decent morning. I brought him tea and opened my notebook. First, I said, we build the narrative. Your decline needs to be visible, believable. Victor nodded. Patricia's brother owns a medical supply company. He might help. By noon, a plain van rolled up. James, tall, friendly, efficient. He called it medical theater. He helped us set the stage. Oxygen tank. Monitors.
Vierstand.
Empty pill bottles with accurate labels. I dressed the bed with hospital linens Patricia had sent. Moved the machines close. Dimmed the lights. It looked real. Now for the photos, I said. Victor lay in bed, removing his glasses to hollow his face. He mussed his hair. I adjusted the lighting. Overhead, harsh, casting shadows.
My college theater skills kicked in.
A little makeup. Subtle darkening beneath his eyes. In the photos, he looked like he was weeks, days from the end. Your turn, Victor said. You need to look exhausted. I wiped my makeup, pulled on an oversized sweater, sat beside him in a stiff chair, eyes half closed, face drawn. He took several shots. They were perfect. Who's our target? He asked. Melissa, I said. Your niece. She's the only one who's texted. I sent a photo, added a message. Victor had a rough night. Fever hit 102. Managing as best I can. Will update. She responded in minutes. Oh no. Poor Uncle Victor.
Keep me posted.
Victor smiled. Hooks in. Then came the hardest part. I called Brady. Knew he wouldn't answer. But the voicemail would catch everything. Victor hit record on his phone as I began. Brady, I said, voice trembling. It's me again. Victor's not doing well. Hospice nurse is worried about his breathing. Please call me back. I really need your support. My voice cracked just enough. Then silence. We repeated this throughout the day, calls, voice messages, careful records. I logged fictional symptoms. Night sweats, blood pressure dips, pain levels. Backdated everything. You should have been an actress, Victor said, reviewing the log. Creative nonfiction, I replied. Every good story has evidence. Around 4, someone knocked. An older woman stood on the porch with a casserole dish. I'm Edith Peterson, she said warmly. From next door. Figured you might need some dinner. I welcomed her in. She brought more than food. She brought knowledge. Been watching that family for years, she whispered. The way they treat that poor man. Your husband's no better than his mother, if you don't mind me saying. I don't mind at all, I said. I'm finally seeing the kind of family I married into, I murmured. Mrs. Peterson patted my hand gently, her eyes full of quiet outrage. Victor was so good to that boy, she said. Paid his tuition. Bought his first car. And Brady repays him by vanishing on vacation while his stepfather is dying. I let the hurt show. I wasn't acting this time. They left me a note, I whispered. Just a note. No call. No conversation. Just take care of him. Like it was nothing. Shameful, she said firmly. Absolutely shameful. And you're not the only one who's noticed. She told me about last month, how Victor fell in the yard, and it was her husband Harold who helped him. Brady sat on the couch watching football, didn't even come to the door. By the time she left, Mrs. Peterson had promised to spread the word. Let the neighbors know what was happening here. That Victor deserved company. That he mattered. I logged her visit and statements carefully. Over the next 48 hours, 5 more neighbors came by. Each brought a meal, a story, a piece of the puzzle. Times they saw Victor struggling. Times Brady ignored him. Each visit became another thread in the tapestry we were weaving, witnesses to abandonment, to decay, to disregard. Saturday morning, Patricia returned. Final paperwork in hand. We drove Victor to the local bank, his bank for over 30 years. The manager, Richard Collins, met us in the lobby. Victor, he said, good to see you out and about. How are you feeling? Victor gave a weak smile. Just getting my affairs in order, Richard. Memory's still sharp, even if the body's failing. In the privacy of Richard's office, Victor transferred his hidden assets, quietly, decisively, into newly established trusts. Some would go to elder care charities. The rest?
To me as trustee.
His hand shook as he signed. Richard watched, concern creasing his brow. Your stepson was in here last week, he said offhandedly, asking about your accounts. Victor chuckled dryly. Always planning ahead, that one. I remember when he cashed his graduation check here, Richard said. Didn't even say, thank you. Just complained it wasn't enough for a new car. Another witness. Another record. That evening, Victor's phone rang. A video call from Melissa. We jumped into action. Victor got into bed, surrounded by the medical equipment. Oxygen cannula in place. I ruffled my hair, pinched my cheeks to create that too real flush of stress and exhaustion. When I answered, the camera showed me first. Jade, Melissa gasped. You look terrible. Is everything okay? Managing, I said. Then turned the camera toward Victor. He was magnificent. Breathing shallow, eyes fluttering just enough. Melissa, he whispered. That you, sweetheart? She looked shaken. Should we come home early? I mean, is he going to make it till Monday? I turned the phone back to myself, kept my voice soft but urgent. It's hard to say. The hospice nurse thinks things are shutting down. If you want to say goodbye, I'll talk to Brady and Mom, she interrupted. It's just the tickets were non-refundable, and Mom's been so stressed. I nodded, even as my stomach turned. Of course. Victor's been asking for Brady in his lucid moments. I'll tell him to call, she said quickly. After their shore excursion. The moment the call ended, Victor pulled off the oxygen. Did you get that? He asked. I held up my other phone. Every word. He smiled, but his eyes were heavy with grief. My family, weighing cruise tickets against a final goodbye. He didn't cry. He didn't rage. Just nodded, like he'd expected this outcome all along.
I'm sorry, Victor whispered.
He shook his head.
No.
Their truth needed to come out. And you've shown me more in 4 days than they have in years. Sunday morning arrived with a shift. Victor's color was off. His hands trembled more. There was a faint blue tint around his lips. You don't have to act for me, I said gently. You're really not okay, are you? His smile was thin, genuine. Funny, isn't it? After all our make-believe, the real thing sneaks in. I called Diane, the hospice nurse. She promised to come by that afternoon and guided me through managing his comfort. For the first time in days, our plan fell to the background. All that mattered now was him. What would you like for breakfast? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He smiled, far away.
Peaches.
Fresh peaches with cream. Martha used to make them every Sunday. It was November, but I drove to 3 different stores until I found them. When I served them just the way he described, thin crescents, cold cream, his eyes filled. Just like she used to make, he whispered. No one's bothered to remember such things in years. That day, I stopped thinking about evidence. I fluffed his pillows, read aloud from the big sleep, played Bach softly on my phone. Not because it helped the case, because it helped him. You've been kinder to me than anyone since Martha died, he said later, his voice barely above a whisper. Strange, how a stranger can show more compassion than your own blood. Diane arrived at 3. After her exam, she pulled me into the hall. His organs are shutting down, she said gently. Faster than expected. He may have hours, maybe a day. I nodded slowly, even though I felt like the floor was shifting under me. Should I call the family? Diane looked at me for a long moment, then shook her head. At this point, it's about his peace. If they've chosen to miss this, let them. Victor had heard every word. Don't call them, he said. They made their choice. But we have to finish this. He reached for my hand. Call Patricia. She arrived within the hour, notary in tow. Victor, somehow, was ready, sitting upright, sharp-eyed despite his condition. Are you sure? Patricia asked. More sure than I've ever been, he said. Dying clears the clutter. They signed the final transfers. His assets officially placed in trust, benefiting me and elder abuse prevention programs. The will was rewritten, directly citing Brady's abandonment. Now, Victor said, the letter. Patricia recorded as he dictated his final message. No venom. No anger.
Just honesty.
By the time you hear this, I'll be gone. Not that my presence seemed to matter much these past few years. He recounted missed holidays, ignored calls, canceled appointments. A life slowly erased by convenience. This isn't written from rage, he said, voice rising, but from clarity. The worst pain is an illness. It's realizing the people you love see you as a task, a burden, something to manage, not someone to cherish. When he finished, even the notary's eyes glistened. Patricia took his hand. They'll hear every word, she promised. Later, Victor asked for his old video camera. In case they question my sanity, he said. Let them see the truth. I set it up. He spoke for 20 minutes, measured, calm, clear. He named incidents, patterns,
Pain. Then he named me.
Jade gave me dignity in my final days. More than my family did in years. She's the only one who earned the right to carry on what I built. That night, his energy dwindled. He asked me to bring him to his favorite chair by the window. There's a bottle of port in the study, he said. Behind the economics books. Martha and I were saving it for our 50th anniversary. I found it, poured 2 glasses. To justice, Victor said, raising his with trembling fingers. To dignity, I answered. We sat there in the dark, sipping quietly. I read to him, and he drifted in and out, speaking of Martha, of travels that never happened, of dreams they once shared. He didn't mention Brady or Lane, not once. Around midnight, I noticed the change in his breathing. I set the book down, took his hand, and just like that, he was gone. No drama. No final words. Just peace. I sat there for a long time, motionless, as the morning light crept across the floor. Victor was gone. The man I'd only known for 4 days had somehow carved out a space in my heart deeper than most manage in years. In caring for him, I'd found something I didn't even know I was missing: clarity, purpose, strength. At dawn, I called Diane. She arrived quickly, calm as always, but even she seemed struck by the serenity in the room. "Most people fight near the end," she murmured. "But he looks like he just drifted off." "He did," I said softly. "We were reading Raymond Chandler, sharing port he'd saved for an anniversary that never came." Once Diane made the official pronouncement, I called the funeral home Patricia had recommended. 2 quiet men arrived to take Victor's body. One of them recognized his name. "He was a good man," he said. "Always gave to the community fundraisers." When they left, silence swallowed the house whole. I allowed myself a few honest tears. Then I stood up. There was still one last thing to do. They'd be back Monday: Brady, Elaine, Melissa, Hannah. Expecting to find a dying man they could comfort just long enough to ease their guilt. Instead, they'd find me. And truth. I placed Victor's letter in a cream envelope and set it on the mantel, propped against a family photo I hadn't noticed before. Brady and Elaine, smiling wide. Victor stood off to the side, forgotten even in the frame. In the dining room, I laid out every file we'd compiled. Cancelled appointments, financial theft, neglect. I queued up Victor's video statement on the television. All it would take was one button. In the bedroom, I packed my few things. Next to the suitcase, I laid out printouts of their cruise, cocktails, poolside selfies, juxtaposed with photos of Victor's decline. It was all ready. A truth bomb with no timer, just waiting for their arrival. Standing in the center of the house, I looked around one last time. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was justice. "For you, Victor," I whispered. "Now they'll know exactly what they lost." Monday morning moved slowly. I dressed in black. The house felt still, like it was holding its breath. Then car doors, laughter, footsteps on the porch. I stood near Victor's empty rocking chair, waiting. The front door swung open. "Honey, we're home," Brady called, cheerful, sunburnt, his arms full of shopping bags. Elaine followed, sunglasses on her head, heels clacking. Melissa and Hannah behind them, dragging souvenirs. They all stopped when they saw me. Brady's smile faded. Elaine squinted. "What's with the funeral outfit?" "Where's Dad?" she added, not even pretending to care. "Is he napping?" I met their stares.
Steady. Calm.
Victor passed away Saturday night. Brady's bags hit the floor. Hannah backed up a step, clearly looking for an exit. "What do you mean, passed away?" Elaine snapped. "He was supposed to wait until Monday. He died in his sleep."
Peacefully.
Around midnight. I didn't flinch. The funeral was yesterday. A beautiful service. Full house. Neighbors, friends from his banking years. Brady's face tightened. Calculating. You had the funeral without us?" His family was invited. I left several messages. You chose not to respond. Melissa stepped forward, suddenly unsure of herself. "I told you he looked bad, Brady. Remember? I showed you that call." Brady waved her off, turning to me. "We need to sit down." "Yes," I said. "We do." I led them into the living room. The letter waited on the table. No one dared touch Victor's rocking chair. "There's something you should hear," I said. "Victor left this for you." Elaine cut in. "Did he change the will? Is that what this is?" I met her gaze. Unflinching. "Let's start with his words." I opened the letter and began reading. The room changed as his voice filled the silence, through mine. His disappointments. His loneliness. His clarity. The holidays spent alone. The appointments skipped. The heat turned down. The moments they thought he couldn't hear. "The greatest pain isn't dying," I read aloud. It's realizing the people you love saw you as a burden, a problem to solve. By the time I folded the letter, no one spoke. Hannah avoided eye contact. Melissa looked nauseous. Elaine's jaw was tight. Brady cleared his throat. Dad wasn't well. He was confused. The medication. He was lucid. I cut in. He also recorded a video. This is ridiculous, Elaine snapped.
He was sick.
Nothing he said at the end matters. Brady's next of kin. This won't hold. There's more, I said, already walking toward the dining room. The evidence waited. Folders labeled. Timelines in place. Brady stopped cold when he saw it. What is all this? Evidence, I said, of everything you failed to do. I opened a folder. Bank transfers. Care expenses that never existed. Elaine grabbed one. He gave us this money. We were caring for him. By leaving him without food? With the heat at 62? With expired medication? I snapped. We have neighbor statements. 6 of them. And then I hit play. Victor's face filled the TV screen.
Calm. Clear.
Devastating. His words were quiet. Truthful.
Deadly.
Even Elaine fell silent. Brady looked like he was melting in his own skin. This is a setup, he barked. She manipulated him. The doorbell rang. Perfect timing. Patricia stepped in, notary at her side. Am I interrupting? She asked.
Not at all, I said.
We're just getting to the good part. Patricia set her briefcase down. As executor of Victor Harmon's estate, I'm here to notify you of the terms of his final will. Brady straightened, tried to appear calm.
Smug.
Patricia didn't flinch. Victor Harmon left his estate entirely to Jade Mitchell, she said, along with significant donations to elder abuse prevention organizations. The silence was electric. Elaine's voice cracked first. That's impossible. We're his family. The will cites abandonment and neglect as reasons for disinheritance. Patricia said. It's valid. Notarized. Witnessed. Supported by medical confirmation of his mental competence. Brady's arrogance crumbled. This is fraud. We'll contest it. You can try, Patricia replied. But you'll lose. And spend money you no longer have. Elaine stared at her. What do you mean? Patricia exchanged a glance with me. Then, all properties you occupy, including your house, belong to the Harmon Trust. Jade now controls it as trustee. The accounts you've been accessing? Frozen. Pending a financial abuse investigation. Brady's face turned white.
No.
The house is mine. Dad promised. He promised nothing. I said coldly. You assumed. That's your mistake. Melissa stepped forward, her voice trembling. What about the college funds? Grandpa said he set them up for us. Patricia's voice was gentle. He gave Brady the money years ago, but the accounts were never created. Melissa's eyes locked on her brother. You spent our college money? The room exploded.
Accusation.
Screaming.
Tears.
Hannah disappeared out the front door. Quiet.
Gone.
I let it unravel for a while. Then I turned and walked to the bedroom to grab my suitcase. Brady followed. Jade, please, he said, voice cracking. We can fix this. I'll change. Hannah meant nothing. Just.
Come home with me.
Please. I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, I saw him clearly. Not a partner, not a protector, just a man who'd never truly seen me at all. I pulled off my wedding ring and dropped it into his palm. Then the keys. You left him to die, I said quietly. Now you get nothing, including me. I turned to leave. Behind me, his voice shifted from begging to threats. You won't get away with this. I'll see you in court. You manipulated a dying old man. At the door, I turned back. Everything was done by the book. Every signature, every statement, every painful truth. You taught me one thing in our marriage, Brady, always keep the receipts. I stepped out into the sharp brightness of November. The sun felt almost too clean after the storm I'd just walked through. Behind me, voices rose. Brady, still shouting. Elaine demanding explanations from Patricia, like she had a right to answers. but it all sounded distant now, like echoes from a chapter I'd just closed. Patricia had reserved a quiet hotel room for me, not far, just enough distance to think clearly.
To breathe.
I slid my suitcase into the trunk, the car door thunking shut like punctuation. Across the street, Mrs. Peterson stood on her porch, arms crossed. A small nod, a wave. I smiled and waved back, grateful for her silent strength. A stranger who saw truth and chose to speak it. And just like that, I was free. Victor's gift wasn't just money, though that would help me start over. His real gift was clarity. He reminded me of who I was before I became someone else's burden, someone else's silence. He gave me purpose when I felt abandoned. He gave me strength when I thought I had none left. As I pulled away from the house and that fractured family inside, I wasn't thinking about revenge or loss. I was thinking about second chances, about living in a way that honored the man who trusted me with his final days. Two people, discarded by those who should have loved them most, found something sacred in the ruins: dignity, connection,
Truth.
Victor found peace. Now it was my turn. Thank you for staying with the story until the end. For me, it was the moment we drank his treasured port, the one he saved for an anniversary that never came. That glass, it held all the love he never got back. That moment will stay with me forever. What about you? Which scene struck you the hardest? I read every comment, every thought, and I carry your words with me. Subscribe for more stories like this, where justice finally finds its way home. I never thought betrayal would wear my mother's voice. She's stronger. Better for you. Those words cut through the air like glass, sharp and final. I was frozen just outside the kitchen door at my cousin's graduation party, hearing them for the first time, spoken so casually, like a weather report. My mother was talking to my boyfriend of 3 years. Mark had gone to get us drinks, but when he didn't return, I went looking. I wish I hadn't. Elizabeth has always been the achiever, my mother said, her tone warm, conversational. You deserve someone who'll push you forward, not hold you back. I watched through the narrow crack in the door. Mark didn't defend me.
Didn't even speak.
Just stood there holding 2 untouched drinks, listening. Listening like he'd been waiting for permission. She's been watching you, my mother added, patting his arm. Elizabeth. Just waiting for her chance. Mark hesitated. I don't know, Mrs. Davis. Audrey and I. What do you have to show for it? Her voice sharpened. Elizabeth just made junior partner. Audrey's still sketching portraits nobody buys. My art. My dreams. Dismissed in a breath. But it wasn't my mother's cruelty that broke me. It was Mark's silence. His nod. Thoughtful. Considered. Like he saw her point. I backed away.
Quiet. Numb.
I didn't confront them. I stayed through the party, smiling like nothing had happened. That was my first mistake. After that, the changes came slow.
Subtle.
Mark started talking about Elizabeth, her case wins, her workouts, her discipline. Every comment felt like a paper cut. Sharp.
Small. Constant.
Then came the late nights. The canceled plans. The legal documentaries she liked suddenly playing on his TV. I found texts once. Lunch plans that I hadn't heard about. When I asked, he shrugged it off. She's your sister. It'd be weird if we didn't get along. I started watching them at family dinners. The private smiles. The shared jokes. I wanted to scream, but I kept quiet. Until Jamie, my best friend, said what I wouldn't let myself believe. He doesn't look at you the same way anymore. I told her it was just a rough patch. We all have them. But I was lying to both of us. 3 months after that day in the kitchen, I decided to surprise Mark with concert tickets. We had talked about moving in together. I still had a key. I wish I'd never used it. His apartment was quiet. A trail of clothes led down the hallway. My sister's blouse was crumpled on the floor. The bedroom door wasn't even closed. Elizabeth's dark hair spilled over Mark's chest. They didn't even hear me until the tickets dropped from my hand and scattered like confetti.
Don't, I said.
Don't tell me it's not what it looks like. Elizabeth didn't flinch. She didn't even cover herself. You were going to find out eventually, she said, like this was nothing more than a scheduling conflict. How long? I asked, though I already knew. Mark looked down. 2 months. Officially. Since Mom had her little chat with you, I finished. And when their eyes widened, I knew they hadn't realized just how much I'd heard. I walked away. No screaming. No breaking things. The rage would come later. That night, I just felt hollow. The next morning, I went to my mother's house. The same kitchen. The same woman. Don't be so dramatic, she said, arranging flowers like we were talking about the weather. Relationships end. Why would you do this to me? I asked. Your own daughter. She looked up briefly. Elizabeth works harder. She deserves someone who matches her. You were always the soft one. The dreamer. You'll find someone more suited to your temperament. In that moment, I saw it clearly. My mother had never seen me, never loved me for who I was, only who she wished I had been. You're wrong about me, I whispered. That night, I packed everything I could fit into my car. Most of my furniture was secondhand anyway. Jamie offered me her couch. But I needed more than a new place. I needed a new life. Are you sure? She asked as I loaded the last box. Running won't fix it. I'm not running, I said. I'm moving forward. The next morning, I left 3 notes behind for my mother, Elizabeth, and Mark. No forgiveness. No drama. Just 3 words. Watch me thrive. With my portfolio, a few $1,000s, and a heart held together by determination alone, I drove to Chicago. The city greeted me with a storm, sheets of rain pounding the windshield like applause for my collapse. I checked into a cheap motel that smelled like cigarettes and old dreams. Gave myself 5 minutes to cry. Then I opened my laptop and started job hunting. 3 days. 12 apartment viewings. I finally signed a lease for a small studio in Uptown. The building was old. The elevator barely worked. My neighbors were students, immigrants, night shift survivors. People starting over.
Just like me.
You have 30 days, I told myself as I taped job listings to the fridge. Find work. Or go home. 28 days later, I walked into my final interview at Meridian Investment Group. The front desk girl sent me to the waiting area. Another woman sat there in a sharp suit, flipping through notes. I suddenly hated my carefully ironed dress. Miss Davis? A woman with perfect hair and a voice like ice. The admin role was filled, but Mr. Harrington would like to meet you for something else, executive assistant to one of our junior associates. I followed her through a maze of glass and fluorescent light. She stopped at a corner office stacked with paperwork and takeout boxes. Patrick Reynolds looked up. Dark stubble. Tired eyes. Still, there was something grounded about him. Sorry about the mess, he said, standing. My last assistant quit with no notice. Audrey Davis, I replied. And I'm flexible. As long as the check clears. A smile tugged at his mouth.
Honest.
I like that. He skimmed my resume. So, why's an art major from Philly sitting in my office in Chicago? I could have given him the polished answer. Stability. Career shift. But I didn't. Because sometimes, I said, starting over means burning the map and drawing a new one. He stared at me for a beat, then nodded. I know a little about fresh starts. The job paid less. The hours were long. The learning curve steep. He warned me about all of it. I'm not afraid of hard work, I told him. And I learned fast. He hired me on the spot. And the next morning, I started the next chapter of my life. One spreadsheet, one breath, one battle at a time. I brought him coffee that went cold. Watched him work late into the night, buried in numbers, while I quietly turned chaos into systems. I didn't understand investments at first, but being around Patrick day after day, the language began to stick. Like a second skin. One night, I was still at the office, reorganizing his files, by risk profile, not alphabetically, when he looked up from a spreadsheet confused. Why are you still here? Because the work isn't finished, I said, not looking up. At first, we were just boss and assistant. Efficient.
Distant.
Awkward sometimes. Like when he accidentally texted me instead of his brother to complain about a terrible date. Or the time I spilled hot coffee all over his quarterly reports and nearly burst into tears. It's just paper, he said, calmly helping me clean up. The data's backed up. Breathe, Audrey. It was the first time someone told me to breathe and meant it. Lunch breaks became our unofficial truce. Patrick insisted I leave the building, dragging me to taco trucks, mom-and-pop diners. Places where he talked about motorcycles and I, reluctantly, shared bits of my art. My past stayed blurry, though. He never pried. "You're a mystery, Davis," he told me once, unwrapping a banh mi sandwich. "Most people love talking about themselves. Most people have stories worth telling," I said, dodging the truth. The months passed. Our rhythm shifted. Patrick started asking for my input.
Trusted me.
I started finishing his sentences, anticipating what he needed before he asked. Late nights became less about deadlines, more about silent understanding, until silence wasn't enough. "My dad wanted me to take over the family construction business," he said one night, staring at a glowing screen. "Thinks finance is just gambling with other people's money." We haven't spoken in 2 years. "My mother always preferred my sister," I replied. It was the first time I'd mentioned my family. Nothing I did was ever enough. He didn't rush to fix it, just nodded. And that felt like the kindest thing anyone had ever done. 6 months in, he invited me to dinner. An actual dinner. Not Thai takeout over spreadsheets. I thought we were celebrating a new client. But then he slid a document across the table. A business plan. A real one. "I've been working on this for years," he said. "A boutique investment firm, focused on sustainable businesses and first-generation entrepreneurs. People big firms overlook." I glanced up. "It's amazing. But why show me?" "Because I'm launching it next month," he said, voice steady. "And I want you with me. Not as an assistant. As operations manager." I laughed. That's insane. I still Google what half our acronyms mean. "You have something I don't," instinct. Integrity. You make things work. The rest you'll learn. It's risky. Extremely. We might fail spectacularly. But I'd rather fail building something meaningful than succeed building nothing at all. He wasn't bluffing. There was no ego. Just belief. In his vision. And, somehow, in me. "When do we start?" I heard myself say. For the first time since leaving Philadelphia, I wasn't running from something, I was running toward it. We shifted easily into business partners. The romantic part that caught us off guard. It started with long nights planning the company, talking about dreams, not just margins. Then dinners that lingered past business hours. One night, outside the office, with snow floating in the glow of a street lamp, he kissed me. The next day, neither of us mentioned it. But a week later, it happened again. "This could ruin everything," I told him. "Or it could be the foundation of something better," he said. That was Patrick, always hopeful. I was the realist.
He was the spark.
Our relationship didn't follow a script. Market trips doubled as weekend getaways. Conference calls and hand-holding under the table. We kept it private. Especially in a world where women were often seen as accessories, not equals. 1 year in, he proposed. No big moment. No ring. Just the two of us in sweatpants, surrounded by paperwork. "Marry me," he said, looking up from a spreadsheet. "Be my partner in everything." People will say it's too fast. Let them talk. I've never been more certain. We got married 3 months later. A courthouse. Jamie flew in. Patrick's brother was there too. I wore a simple cream dress. He wore a charcoal suit. No drama. Just quiet vows and real promises. "I choose you as my partner in all things," he said. And I chose him, not because I needed rescuing, but because I finally believed someone could see me and stay. Our reception was Vietnamese takeout at the restaurant where it all began. Mrs. Nguyen decorated the table with flowers. Poured us champagne. "To partnerships that lift us higher," Patrick toasted. Reality came rushing back fast. Reynolds Capital Partners launched from our one-bedroom apartment. The dining table became our boardroom. The sofa, our intern hub. We met clients at hotel lobbies and cafes, projecting confidence we barely had. I picked up a part-time job at a gallery. Patrick pitched like his life depended on it. Some nights, I'd wake to find him still up, eyes red, chasing numbers that didn't add up. We should consider more traditional clients, I suggested gently after another month of losses. If we bend now, he said, we'll never get back to what we stand for. The argument that followed was brutal. Our first real fight. He wanted to invest our emergency fund. I wanted stability. We slammed doors, said things we didn't mean, but ended with compromise, half for growth, half for security. That became our balance. His risk, my reason. 8 months in, we landed our first major client, a sustainable energy company looking for values beyond profit. Patrick built the pitch. I designed the materials. We didn't just win their trust. We earned 3 more referrals from it. Finally, momentum. We need to celebrate, he said. I resisted. He persisted. He recreated our first lunch. Vietnamese takeout. Spring rolls. Noodles. Coffee mugs filled with $5 wine. To my brilliant wife, he said, who believed in us even when I almost didn't. The business grew fast after that. Too fast for our tiny apartment. Interns on the couch. Conference calls from the bedroom. It all fell apart the day a client arrived early while I was in a towel. We need real office space, he said that night. And a home where I don't find paperclips in the cereal. We signed a lease on a small downtown office. Moved into a modest 2-bedroom with enough space to breathe. And suddenly, we had something resembling balance. 3 years passed in a blur of work and small wins. Patrick became known for ethics, innovation, heart. Our reputations stretched beyond Chicago. I built the systems behind the scenes. Together, we made something real. Then, out of nowhere, a major investment firm made us an offer: acquire Reynolds Capital Partners in full. The condition? Patrick would stay on as CEO of their new sustainable investment division. I never imagined this, he whispered after signing. We were standing in the kitchen of our new house. A home. They didn't just buy the company, I told him, fixing his collar. They bought your vision. It wasn't easy. He worked more. I took on more. But when I saw him standing at the head of that boardroom, speaking with the same fire he once did in our living room, I knew it was worth it. We did it, he whispered to me that night, clinking glasses at the champagne toast. Together. I watched him from across the room, Patrick shaking hands with executives who now answered to him. 5 years ago, I'd walked into Chicago soaked in rain and heartbreak. Tonight, I stood in a gown that caught the light just right, in a life I had built from splinters.
He was the CEO now, and I was no longer the wife.
My systems ran the veins of this company, 3 markets, dozens of departments, all moving because I made the gears turn. Patrick dreamed the future. I carved the foundation beneath it. At home, life had settled into a gentle rhythm. Sundays meant coffee and the paper. Monthly dinners with friends. Quiet weekends in Michigan while Patrick restored a vintage motorcycle he swore would never run, but loved anyway. We hadn't started a family yet. The business was still our baby. But lately, the idea had started to drift into our conversations, soft and unspoken like a melody we both knew by heart. Philadelphia felt like another life. Jamie still visited, her updates always selective, carefully edited. I thought I'd made peace with that chapter. Until one Tuesday morning. Patrick slid a magazine across the breakfast table. You might want to see this. In the corner, a headline: Davis and Associates faces bankruptcy after failed expansion. My sister's law firm. The one she built with Mark after he left his job to join her. My hands went still. I didn't know you followed Philly news, I said, trying to sound casual, even as my chest tightened. I don't, he replied. Meridian's on our acquisition shortlist. And Mark works there now. Their legal department contracts with Davis and Associates. He watched me closely. I wanted you to hear it from me before the office bus starts. The article was brutal. A national expansion that fell apart. Clients fleeing. Lawsuits.
Debt.
Mark had taken a compliance job at Meridian after the collapse, at a fraction of what he'd once earned. The irony didn't escape me. The so-called stronger match, handpicked by my mother, was now hanging by a thread. And here I was, in a sunlit kitchen beside a man who would never need to be convinced of my worth. Does it change your plans? I asked. That depends on you, Patrick said. Meridian's energy portfolio aligns with ours. But I'll walk away if it makes you uncomfortable. That's who he was. Why I loved him. Don't be ridiculous, I said, taking his hand. It's just business. 2 weeks later, the deal was done. Meridian would keep its name but operate under our umbrella. Mark stayed in his role, technically our employee, though layers separated us. We should host a gala, Patrick said one evening, scrolling through our quarterly numbers. Celebrate the acquisition. Introduce Meridian to our company culture. Nothing unusual there. We held one every year at the Natural History Museum, our values reflected in every detail. But then he said it. I think we should invite Mark Davis. And the other leads from Philadelphia. Any legal affiliates too. I froze. You want to invite my sister and my ex to our gala? Patrick blinked. Is that what this is about? Then he paused. Wait, Davis, I didn't connect that to your sister. That's when I realized he didn't know. He knew I'd left Philadelphia. Knew I'd been hurt. But I had never told him the whole story. Not the kitchen door. Not the betrayal. Not the way my mother had pulled strings like I was disposable. I'd compartmentalized so well, I'd forgotten he wasn't inside those walls with me. So that night, I told him everything. When I was done, I expected rage.
Or sorrow.
Or both. Instead, he said quietly, maybe it's time they saw who you've become. Not for revenge. For closure. You've built something real. Something they never saw in you. But you did. It unlocked something I didn't know I still held, a need not to hurt them, but to be seen.
We'll invite them, I said.
All of them. The next weeks blurred into gala prep. I poured my nerves into details. Sustainable seafood, carbon-neutral transport, flower centerpieces that told stories about our values. The guest list made it real. Their names, Elizabeth Davis, Mark Davis, Claire Davis, my mother, my sister, the man I once thought would marry me. What would they see when they looked at me now? Would my mother still measure my worth in degrees and salaries? Would Mark regret it? One night, Patrick found me lost in the middle of mock invitations. Second thoughts? Not about inviting them, I said. I'm just wondering if I'm doing this for the right reasons. Am I still chasing their approval? Patrick sat down beside me, took my hands. You stopped needing anyone's approval the moment you drove into this city with nothing but your art and your will. He kissed my forehead. Whatever your reason, I'm here. The next morning, I finalized the list. No hesitation. Each invitation was printed on recycled paper, soy-based ink, minimal waste. Because our values didn't take the night off. For my family, I included a handwritten note, looking forward to showing you the life I've built. Audrey Reynolds' their replies came in one by one. Mark would attend as Meridian's compliance officer. Elizabeth would join him as his wife. And my mother sent a short note. Looking forward to reconnecting. 3 weeks before the event, I found the dress. Emerald green.
Sleek.
Confident without trying too hard. The color made my eyes stand out. It felt like armor, quiet, commanding mine. Ready to face your past? Patrick asked the night before the gala. I looked at my reflection. Poised, polished, no longer pretending. Ready to showcase my present, I answered. The Natural History Museum glowed with golden light. Sustainable fixtures. Local flowers.
Organic cuisine.
Jazz curling through the corners like silk. Everything looks perfect, Patrick said, tightening his bow tie. I nodded, surprising myself. I'm not even nervous.
This is our world now.
They're just visiting. We stood at the entrance, greeting guests. I wore my emerald gown, a simple diamond pendant, an anniversary gift. My hair was in a clean, sharp bob.
No frills. No pretense.
Just me. Then I saw them. My mother entered first. Navy dress. Perfect posture. Elizabeth and Mark followed. They stopped near the entrance, scanning the room. Unfamiliar faces. Unfamiliar territory. I didn't move. Let them find me. They circled the room. Eventually, they arrived where Patrick and I stood chatting with the mayor. My mother saw me first. Her smile faltered, then returned, carefully polished. "Audrey," she said, leaning in with a practiced hug. "You look stunning." "Mother," I said, calm. "Glad you could make it." I turned to Patrick. "This is my husband, Patrick Reynolds." "Patrick Reynolds," Elizabeth said, shaking his hand. "I've followed your company's expansion." "Respectfully," Patrick said, sliding his hand to the small of my back, "our success is a partnership." Audrey's systems made it possible. Their eyes shifted. A flicker of surprise. This wasn't the story they'd imagined. Not the girl who got lucky. Not the dreamer clinging to a man with power. This was mutual. Built from the ground up. "Mark Davis," my ex said stiffly, offering his hand. "Compliance Officer, Meridian." "We're aware," Patrick replied smoothly. "Welcome to the family of companies." Mark blinked. The pieces clicked. His mouth opened slightly. Your company acquired Meridian." "Last month," I confirmed, cool and unshaken. "Patrick will announce it tonight." They went still.
Processing.
The man who left me now reported up the chain I helped build. The sister who replaced me now stood beside a man in middle management. The mother who dismissed me now watched me command a room of leaders. "If you'll excuse us," Patrick said gently, "we have more guests to greet. Enjoy yourselves." As we moved through the crowd, I felt her eyes on me, my mother, watching, measuring, her face unreadable, somewhere between calculation and confusion. The night unfolded with polished precision. Dinner was flawless. Awards were handed out, one to a young woman I'd mentored from intern to team lead. I caught Elizabeth watching as the crowd applauded her, my name mentioned with quiet reverence. Everywhere I turned, someone asked for my input. Patrick's speech wove my name through his words like a golden thread. I didn't shrink. I didn't apologize. I belonged there, fully, entirely. After dinner, Patrick took the stage. He spoke with purpose. About vision, ethics, investing in more than just profit. When he announced the acquisition of Meridian, Mark was spotlighted, awkward, and out of place. It wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. This was what the future looked like. And it didn't have their fingerprints on it. Later, near the dessert table, my mother approached. Champagne in hand.
Polished.
Smiling. "I always knew you'd do well," she said, as if rewriting history. "You had such potential." "Did you?" I asked quietly. "That's not how I remember it." She waved the moment away, like lint. Mother's push. Elizabeth needed confidence. You needed motivation. "No," I said, gently but firmly. "I needed support." What I found instead was strength, on my own terms. She sipped her drink, then shifted tactics. "Well, I suppose I should thank this Patrick for seeing what I missed." "Patrick saw me clearly," I replied. "But he didn't give me success. We built it. Together. As equals. That's the difference." Her smile faltered. Just slightly. But enough. Then came the pitch. "Elizabeth and Mark are having a rough time," she said softly. "Maybe you could put in a good word. Family should help family." And there it was. Not reconciliation. Leverage. "Like everyone else," I said calmly, "their performance will shape their future here. Just like mine did." I saw Elizabeth approaching next, Mark trailing behind her like a man already resigned to the shadows. "Your husband is impressive," Elizabeth said. "The way he commands the room. You've done well for yourself." A compliment wrapped in resentment. The suggestion that Patrick's power was the source of mine. "We've done well together," I said, evenly. That's how real partnerships work. Something to consider in your own arrangement. Her smile thinned. Mark looked away. The tension between them was clear, brittle, sharp. Not what I'd hoped for them, strangely. Instead of satisfaction, I felt something else.
Pity.
They had chased a version of success built on competition and deception. And now, standing there, they looked like the ones who'd been left behind. Not because of status, but because they never learned to build anything real. I should mingle, I said, stepping away. Enjoy the evening. Later, long after the last guest had left and the caterers packed up the last tray, Patrick and I sat at the kitchen counter in sweatpants, eating leftover cake straight from the container. How do you feel? He asked, watching me across the soft glow of our home. Lighter, I said, surprised by the honesty of it. Like I finally set something down I didn't know I was still carrying. He nodded. They seemed smaller. Not what I pictured.
They are smaller, I said.
Or maybe I'm bigger. Not because of the company. Not the title. Just because I understand now what matters. He waited, building something real. With someone who sees your value without needing to diminish anyone else. So not revenge after all, he said, eyes warm. No, I paused. Something strange happened tonight.
What?
I felt grateful. He raised an eyebrow. I watched them, unhappy, strained, clinging to something that never really worked. And instead of feeling triumphant, I felt grateful. For what? For their betrayal. If they hadn't broken me, I never would have left. Never would have come to Chicago. Never would have met you. Or found out what I'm capable of. I reached for his hand. Their cruelty gave me my freedom, even if they never meant to. Patrick smiled, pulled me into a quiet embrace. That's the most powerful kind of redemption, he said. Not punishing those who hurt you, but using the pain to build something better. As we climbed the stairs to bed, tired, calm, full, I realized something. This night hadn't been about showing them what they lost. It was about seeing, maybe for the first time, just how much I've gained, and letting them go for good.